Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Forrest Gump. So this is a donation reward from Smurflogs, and yeah, I've never seen this movie before, at least not all the way through. Let me explain. I've seen like the first few minutes of the movie at one point. Um, Basically, I tried to watch it and I fell asleep almost instantly because I was just obnoxiously tired at that point anyway. And like I said, it was pretty much almost instantly. And I don't even remember anything about it. Um, but that being said, there are a couple of things that I do know just because they're pop culture. Like, obviously, you know the life is like a box of chocolates line. Everyone knows that. It's just a mainstay in pop culture. Um, I know about the entire Bubba Gump Shrimp Company thing. Um, I know that there's a real restaurant named for it. Um, and I know that it has something to do with like all these different kinds of ways to prepare shrimp. I don't know all the details, but yeah. Um, the movie is about 2.5 hours long, and I do know that it like takes place over a good number of years, and that there's this female character in the movie who everyone hates. I don't know the details about it, but I do know that apparently everyone hates her or something. Um, but like I said, I don't remember anything from the first few minutes that I saw. And again, like the first few minutes of a 2.5 hour movie is nothing. So probably not much even happened in that time. Um, but yeah, it's like will often be surprised by the movies and stuff I haven't seen, just because it's like like Forrest Gump is such this big name movie that has been in pop culture forever since its release. And it's like kind of a mainstay, one of those movies that it's like if you are a cinephile, you have to have seen, kind of deal. Um, and I've just never really sat down and watched it. I've never gotten to that point. Not out of a lack of interest or anything. I've just never really checked it out. I don't know, just other movies have taken precedence for me. Um, but we're getting to it now. That's kind of why I like doing these donation reward reactions because it allows me to get to see stuff that I never would have seen otherwise, whether I end up enjoying it or not. I get to see stuff I never would have seen. I get to like find out about stuff I've never even heard of. And hey, sometimes they're big hits for me. So, hey. Um, I honestly don't know what I'm gonna think about this film going in, just because again I know very little about it. I hope to like it, just like I hope to like everything I react to. But honestly, I can't say with any level, any degree of certainty. So we're just gonna kind of have to see. We're just gonna kind of have to uh, wait and find out, basically. Um, but yeah, yeah. Might as well just get on with this because I don't really have anything else to say. Like again, I don't know anything else. I don't really have any thoughts going into it. Um, I'm gonna judge it fully on what I end up seeing and how I end up feeling about it, rather than just because it's a really popular movie, I'm not gonna just automatically love and adore it just because it's popular. It's gonna actually have to impress me for that. And if it does, awesome. If it doesn't, oh well. But hey, Smurf Vlogs, your donation rewards have not disappointed me so far. Not all of them have been like as good, but you know. So I have hope. I have faith. Um, so let's get this going. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction.
And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, I said in the pre-thoughts that there's supposedly this character, this female character that everybody doesn't like in this film, and I don't know who it is. So someone's going to have to explain that to me. But outside of that, first of all, you may be wondering, why in the middle of the reaction did we switch rooms and everything? Well, my father came back. I didn't realize he wasn't going to work today, so I came into here so I wouldn't like be bothersome and everything out there recording and all. But yeah, so we just finished the reaction and doing the afterthoughts in here. Not a big deal. So just overall initial thoughts on the film after finally having seen it at 28 years old. I thought it was fantastic. Like it's I think one of those cases, just like with oh my god, what is that other movie I reacted to like what, a couple months ago? The Prison Break one. I can't think of the name of it right now. But just like that one, it's one of those movies that is almost universally praised. And I've always kind of like, since I haven't seen it, I've always kind of wondered, does it live up to that hype? Can it possibly live up to the praise that it gets? And yeah, just like that one, it does. This movie is really, really good. And it didn't feel like 2.5 hours, honestly. There were a couple points where it did drag a little bit, but not to a point where it really hindered the film. This movie was the life of Forrest Gump up until a certain point. It was a life story, basically. And there's way too much to discuss everything that happened, obviously. So I'm not even going to try. But there's certain things I do want to touch on. There's certain things I want to touch on and really cover. And that's one of the big things is the certain relationships Forrest has had throughout the years. Obviously, there's his mother. Him and his mother, he lived with a single mother. Never really had any information about his father. The only thing we know is that he went on vacation, which could mean a couple different things. That could be a metaphor for him walking out on Forrest's mother. That could be a metaphor for death. It could count for either, honestly. But we never really find out anything about it because honestly, it's not important. Forrest and his mother's relationship is what matters in that context, and it's great. She teaches him good things. She stands up for him at the right times. She's very kind, very thoughtful, very intelligent. And like there's never once in the film where you like think that she's going to say or do something even slightly wrong. Like she's just that fantastic. And Forrest loved her dearly. I mean, even to the point where it's like still in the current day, you can see that he is taking her words of wisdom to heart, and he's utilizing them. The next person, obviously, to touch on is Lieutenant Dan. When Forrest is shipped off to Vietnam, he meets and serves under Lieutenant Dan, who at first is kind of a little bit of an eccentric dude, with a bit of a grumpy side to him, but nothing too terrible. Um, he eventually kind of gets a little. He's a little bit of a dick, but he could be a lot worse. Um, but after the war and everything, when he loses his legs, he becomes a huge asshole to Forrest at first. But the two eventually strike up a really unlikely friendship that actually blooms really promisingly. Not only do they actually form a legitimate, strong friendship with each other, but to the point where Lieutenant Dan stands up for Forrest. He agrees to become his first mate on the shrimping boat, and he even attends his wedding after getting his new legs and everything. And it's like by that scene, which is the last scene you see Lieutenant Dan in, it's like they're basically best friends. And it's believable. And you would have never thought it would be the case from when you first met the character. You never would have thought it'd be the case, but that's where it goes. And Lieutenant Dan himself has grown as a character too. From being kind of an asshole, kind of a dick, with a bit of a cocky, eccentric side, to just kind of becoming this depressed asshole after the war, to actually getting things together thanks to Forrest. And we even see that one point where he's like, I never thanked you. But, and though he doesn't actually say the words, you know that he meant it there. He did thank him. I honestly became really invested in that storyline, to be completely fair. So it's like that the payoff at the end, with him walking up with his new fiance with his new legs and everything, it's like it felt like a really good payoff to everything that had been built up throughout the film. And then there's Jenny, and I'm thinking Jenny might be the character that people don't like, but I don't understand why, if that's the case. Because it's like, yes, there were points where Jenny did kind of give Forrest the runaround. There were points where she kind of maybe led him on a little bit. But it was more not that she was being mean or anything towards him. It was her own self-doubt. She had a lot of self-doubt. She had very heavy depression to the point where she very nearly committed suicide twice, at least, that we saw. We saw that she was doing drugs and just very hard on herself when she wasn't going the places she wanted to. She came from a very broken, destructive family. And it's like, you can't really blame her. She was a victim in a lot of ways herself. And yeah, she did some things that she regretted, but in the end, like, she realized her love for Forrest. She not only agreed to marry him, she asked him by the end, and she died just as his beloved wife. And it's like, again, it felt like a proper payoff, but on top of that, it's just like she was a really great character in and of herself. She was fantastically developed, felt like she had a lot of depth and realism to her. She made mistakes, but she didn't let that define her in the end. And about her illness was never mentioned by name, but based on the time period and everything surrounding that, I didn't want to say it during the film because I didn't want to jinx it necessarily, but I also didn't want to just assume. But based on the time period, it could have been AIDS. Like, just that was the big epidemic around that time period. So it's like, it could have been. I don't know if it was. Like I said, it never said. It never even gave us much detail about it, but it could have been, is what I was thinking. Um, we also had Bubba, who was Forrest's best friend while he was in the army. Bubba had, as he said, enlarged gums, which caused him to have a little bit of an issue with his lips sticking out and a lisp. He also seemed to maybe be similar to Forrest in his personality, attitude, and maybe to a degree as well. He might have had a bit of a learning disability as well. Um, it's very possible based on the context we saw. He was very much like Forrest. They were very similar. The two bonded really quickly and always had each other's back throughout the war, and just showed this just instant friendship that, unlike the friendship with Lieutenant Dan, which took time to build, this one was more of like just they instantly clicked. They instantly just it just worked for them to be best friends together. So there wasn't a lot of time we got with them, honestly, but what we did get, it again felt believable. Just the chemistry between the actors there felt really believable and really just well handled and well written. Um, you see various other characters and obviously real life people, presidents and whatnot throughout the film, but not too many of them are like massively important to the actual story of the film. The only other character I really want to discuss is Forrest Jr. So at the end, we find out that Jenny had a child and that it was Forrest's child, which the instant we saw the child, that instantly popped into my head because we saw that Forrest and Jenny did have sex. So the instant we saw that she had a child, that instantly popped into my head. It's just like I instantly knew, like, that's Forrest's child, even before anything was said. And we see Forrest's relationship. At first, he's like, "Oh, you have a kid," and then when he finds out it's his, you see how scared he is. And at first, you're thinking it's just like, "Oh, he thinks he did something wrong," but then you find out, no, he's scared that the kid is suffering from the same disabilities that he is. He's afraid that his child is going through what he has, and that's really sad. That's really sad, but it also shows how much he cares and how much he doesn't want other people to go through the same things he did, the same struggles in life with his learning disability and just issues in general. And then after the fact, after they start to get to know each other, you can see they bond. And by the end, when he gets on the bus, it's like, yeah, it's like this is a father and a son. And it's great. It's just fantastically done. Now, one prevailing theme throughout the film is Forrest being referred to as stupid. And his response is going about with what his mother told him: stupid is as stupid does. Which I come to take as meaning you're only as stupid as you act. So it depends on your actions to how you are perceived. And so it's really interesting to think about it that way. But I never saw throughout this entire film Forrest as stupid. He clearly has learning issues. He's not maybe as on the ball as neurotypical people. He definitely has some learning disability and some mental disability, but he's not dumb. He shows that throughout multiple points in the movie. He actually has intelligence to him. He very much can understand the world around him. In fact, in some ways, better than neurotypical people can. And so throughout the film, it's like, I've never seen him that way. And so it's every time you hear someone call him that, it's just a little upsetting, personally. And maybe it's partially because of the connection, having uh, mental and learning disabilities myself, but I also kind of maybe thought like, could he possibly be autistic? It almost seems like there's a possibility of that. I'm not saying he is. I'm not trying to like force that idea. I'm just saying like it almost seems very similar in the symptoms. Um, and I don't know what the intention was from the writer of the film and the director. Um, I don't know what they were trying to convey with all of that, but whether or not that would be the case, it's like what we saw Forrest as in the film was what was more important. The things he did, the things he said, the things he stood up for. Like we saw just at the end of the of his time in the war, or at least over in Vietnam, we saw like he refused to leave anybody behind, even when it was dangerous for him, even when it was inconvenient. He refused to leave anyone behind, even when they told him to leave them behind, like Lieutenant Dan did. And so it's like it's just a really cool thing to see. Um, the pacing of this film is different than most other films I've seen, I think, because most of the movie, up to a certain point at near the end, is told all through memory. It's Forrest telling his life story to these people on a park bench waiting for a bus. It's it's all stuff from the past, and it's all based on what he can remember. But then at that point, it kind of branches off into the current day, and you see, and the way that the movie's scenes are presented from that point forward are clearly different. You could tell there's a difference in the presentation, in the way it's kind of told, and I like that. Because up to that point, when everything's told in the past, it's like kind of like skipping through certain parts. Like you don't get to see every little piece of the war. You don't get to see every little piece of his childhood. It just skips through certain parts. But once it's in the current day, it feels more. It feels more like it's a currently going, rolling narrative, rather than just like cutting out bits and pieces. Um, so I really like the pacing. The acting, of course, was phenomenal. Tom Hanks has always been a fantastic actor, but everyone else in this did really great as well. The soundtrack was perfection. It conveyed everything it needed to. I don't really have any real issues with this film. It's not necessarily the best movie I've seen. I wouldn't even say by a long shot, but I really enjoyed it, and I don't really have anything negative to say. Like I said, there were a couple parts that were a little slow, but it's like I wasn't disinterested while watching them. Um, there were a couple plot points that maybe it could have skipped, but I wasn't. I never I never found myself wanting for enjoyment. Everything felt like it fit. And like I said, it did not feel like 2.5 hours by any means. It it felt like it didn't even reach 2 hours. And I've watched long movies before. I've watched Troy, which is like I think 3 or 4 hours or something like that. Um, so it's like I've watched long movies. I think Avengers Endgame is like 2.5 hours or something too. Um, so that's not the issue, and it's not the first time I've seen longer movies like this not feel like longer movies. But I was kind of actually surprised because I knew going in this was longer, and I honestly thought it was going to feel like a 2.5 hour movie, but it didn't. Um, yeah, and I just really did enjoy it. I didn't know what I was going to think about it going in. Again, like prior to this, I'd only seen like maybe a couple clips here and there, and the first couple minutes when I tried to watch it one time but fell asleep almost right away. And I didn't even remember anything about that. So yeah, I didn't know what I was going to think about it, but I really did love it. And so, thank you very much to Smurf Vlogs for choosing this as your donation reward. If you have any other ideas based on the list I have on the Discord and the channel as well, or any other movies you can think of, please feel free to request them. Um, Honestly, I just really like seeing these requests come in because it's like I get to, again, react to stuff I never would have otherwise. I probably would have never ended up watching this on my own time. Same with the anime series we're currently doing for donation rewards, Dororo. I probably would have never seen that otherwise. But because of these donation rewards, I am seeing this kind of stuff, and I love seeing it. So yeah, if you Smurf Vlogs or anyone else has any other ideas, or if you want to see me react to anything from that list I mentioned, which is both on Discord and it's on the channel as well, please feel free to suggest. And I'll add it to my list. And remember, it's donation reward, just any amount is okay. My PayPal is in the description below. You can donate any amount. No matter what amount you donate, you still get a donation reward. So whatever you're able to, whatever you're comfortable with donating. It's basically just my version of doing Patreon, just a little easier, I guess, for me and everyone else. But yeah, if anyone has any more suggestions, feel free because I want to keep seeing movies. Even if it ends up being a movie I don't like, I still welcome just as many suggestions, as many donation rewards as possible because even if some aren't as good, some will be worth it. Some will be really good. And I don't know what ones are going to be that way. So, yeah. But I want to hear in the comments below what you think of Forrest Gump. And well, for now, I'm signing off, and that's all I've got to say about that. I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.